You good, Mish? Check. Look in this camera if you can, and just give us a sound check. Just say, my name is, and I'm here on the Blake Martin podcast.
Blake Martin podcast?
Yeah.
G'day guys, my name's Tanera Nathan, better known as MCT, and I'm here on the Blake Martin podcast. Very happy to be here. Is that all right?
Yeah, bro.
Is that all right? If you need to do another take, let me know.
Bro, I was like, my gosh. This is what he does, man. He's a fight caller.
Once or twice.
Yeah.
I've done it once or twice. You know, the funny thing is that the producers, they always get really angry with me because I never have the headphones sitting properly because I don't want to mess up my hair. But for you, I want to do it properly. So cool, we're good. We're good to go now.
Good shit, brother.
All right, let's do it.
Sweet, man. Thanks for coming in, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, we all good, Mish? Yeah? Awesome, man.
Misha's all over it.
Yeah, man. He's the man. You done many podcasts?
Yeah, plenty.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Hosted and been a guest on a few.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome, bro. So, mate, a bit of a story. Oh, well, it's an interesting story, mate. We only met, I think, was it last weekend?
Yeah, we met at my nephew's, was it his 7th birthday party?
Yeah, it'd be about right.
And yeah, last Saturday, I think it was. So
yeah.
And a week later, here we are.
We are. And I think the common bond that we quickly connected on was obviously the fight scene that you're involved in. And then we both know Kyle Nope. Yeah. Who's like his younger brother is my childhood mate. Known him forever. I was actually just talking to him before. Oh, yeah. And Denham, shout out Denham. And he'll come and we'll co-host. We have a little show in here called The Lads. And it's just a little bit of a loose version of when me and him get together, mate. We're bloody larrikins. We just carry on with a bunch of shit. And so anyhow, early days, but that's my connection to Kyle. So yeah, man. So tell us, thanks for sending your bio over.
That's all right.
That's right.
That wasn't too much, was it?
It was actually, no, it was the shortest one I've ever got.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's very good. We'll freestyle the rest.
Tell us, so how did you get into this? Like, what do you actually call it? Because you don't actually call fights. What do you call it?
I can do all three. So you've got the ring announcer or the cage announcing, which is your Bruce Buffer. Yes. And then what I do for the majority of the shows that I commentate for a company called Eternal MMA is what they call it play-by-play commentary.
Right.
So I'm the one that opens the show, calls the action as it happens. For example, if you were to look at the UFC, John Anik is, in my opinion, the greatest commentator of all time, not just for mixed martial arts, but I would say across all sports. That's my role. I certainly don't do it as well as him.
Right.
But then you've got colour commentators like Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier, Michael Bisping, Paul Felder. They're your fight analysts / colour commentators to break down the techniques that the fans and the viewers are seeing on screen.
Right.
So I take the role of a John Anik. Formerly it was Mike Goldberg back in the day, probably when Kyle was fighting back in the Stone Age. So I think that's a role that I enjoy, but I can also do a bit of Bruce Buffer as well. And just on the weekend, I had the opportunity to work for Tasman Fighters on behalf of RXM Sports, and I was doing the presenting as the fighters were walking to the ring. So that was a good way to diversify the portfolio, I guess. Yeah.
Awesome, man. How long have you been doing that for?
2017, so it's coming up to exactly 8 years. So May 2017, I did my first show at my local PCYC in Bundle.
Cool. And what did you do there? What specifically?
Specifically, it was ring announcing.
Yeah.
What happened was that I was boxing at the time. I'd had a couple of fights a few years earlier.
Yeah.
And I'd only just gone back because I was actually injured from rugby and I couldn't play a full season. So I just thought, I'll take a break. So I went back and started boxing, which actually helped my core strength. I met my coach. His name's Jay Toop, and he was having an amateur boxing night.
Right.
And from the time I spoke to him, it was about a month away. And I said to him, look, do you have anyone that can announce, or do you have an announcer for the evening? And he goes, we got someone. I said, well, look, I'll do it for free. And I just wanted to see if I could do it, because I remember at the time I was at uni, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I was studying some toilet paper degree, Bachelor of Business or something like that, I still haven't even opened the envelope of my graduation certificate. So, you know the feeling.
I saw that in there, actually. Yeah.
So that was back in 2017.
Yeah.
And then come fight night, it was, 100 fights on an amateur card that my coach had put together. Massive night. I think we started at like 11 o'clock, didn't finish till 1 in the morning.
Shit.
So it was pretty much just a segue into something that I thought I could do, but didn't know if I could actually do it.
Yeah.
I got some positive feedback on the night from my coach and obviously the fans in attendance. And then about 6 months later, I think around February in 2018, my coach called me. They wanted him to commentate a boxing show in Tweed.
Right.
And it's funny, I was just talking to him about this yesterday after hosting or presenting for Tasman Fighters. He said that he couldn't do it. I think he had other commitments, but he just told him, he said, look, I know a guy, I'll send him your way. And that was for a promotion called Boxing Mania.
Yep.
And they were streaming on Fox Sports Australia at the time. So pretty much from the time that I did one amateur show, I might have done one in between, but within the space of about 6 months, I'd pretty much found it. So
must be a small crew of guys that can do it and that do it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got really good ones. Like for boxing, the main guy in Australia is a guy called Ben Damon. One of my good friends and his name's Jury Forbes. And then you've got a range of others that commentate for certain promotions. Yeah. A lot of it's who you know.
Yeah.
And there's no textbook or playbook on how to become a successful commentator. You can go to university and study journalism. You can specialize in presenting, but in my experience, that was it. It was experience on the job. I had to learn pretty much from day dot right up until now. And I can say 8 years later, even though it is a small group, there's not many of us out there. You do want to make sure that you can cover all bases, in the sense that you don't just want to be a ring announcer. You want to be able to commentate, do colour commentary, present, be able to host interviews, things like that. So that's where I'm trying to still improve.
Have you had any formal training with it?
Funnily enough, I have. Not in my adulthood, but when I was at high school. And I was talking to my mum about this the other day. I took speech and drama, effective communication classes from the age of 13 right up until I was in year 12.
Wow.
At age 18. So there was about 5 years there where I learnt from my effective communications teacher, and this would be outside of school, right? So this wouldn't be a class. You'd have to pay extra.
Yes.
And Mum was paying extra at the time, Mum and Dad. And I would go there for an hour and just learn how to speak, focusing on things like volume, dictation, tone, pitch, clarity, things like that, presenting. So that was kind of my, I guess, apprenticeship, not really knowing that I would be doing this for a living. I guess that was 2009, 15, 16 years later. And you can imagine the disappointment on my mum's face when I told her I'm a full-time sports announcer for MMA and boxing. The 5 years that she'd paid for speech and drama classes, she was like, yeah, that wasn't necessarily the plan, but hey, if it works for you, then I guess it paid off. I actually asked her the other day, I said, why did you put me in? Because I'd never really asked her that, but I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, man, why did she put me into speech and drama? Because it wasn't something that I wanted to focus on. Yeah. But I was playing footy at the time, wasn't bad in school, but wasn't at the top. Was just kind of doing my best, and then this one aspect that my mum thought that would be beneficial to me, has allowed me to be able to make a living out of this. So I'm very grateful. Yeah, man. I think it's as a latecomer to the craft, so to speak. It's something that I'm finding such a deeper appreciation for. Like, it's like anything, right? Like, as soon as you get into it, you quickly learn there's levels to that shit, right? Yeah. And so with this, and even like listening to you now, bro, I can hear the dividends. And if that was obviously the seed of where it started to now, even when you just did that intro, I was just like, shit. Even Misha heard it. But, might take we can do another take if that one wasn't good enough. No. So it's interesting because even this is obviously a new journey for myself, and I've spoken about it before, where there is an interesting art of dialogue where I think the true professionals, you almost get lost in the conversation and you just sit in that pocket
and I'm not thinking about the next question that I'm going to ask you next. I'm listening to what you're saying, and then I'm conversing back with you. I feel like the best podcasts anyhow that I love are those ones where it's just this exchange and it just goes and there's this energy. And yeah, man. So I can hear it in your voice, the work you've put in, bro. So yeah, man, amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Well done.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So and let's talk about like the nerves, and let's talk a little bit about this as a craft. I was even thinking about today. I've got like a little bit of a raspy throat, and I was like, oh man, what do I do for this shit? And like, what do you do, man? Like if you've got like a bit of a cold, you got a big show on or something like that. It's not like you can just go, hey, I'm calling in sick today, guys. No. You got to like move through it, right? Give me some tools,
mate. When you talk as much as I do, you kind of just get used to it. I think. If you speak to any of my mates, they say I've been talking trash. Probably I learned how to talk trash probably before I was born or learnt to walk.
Yeah.
In terms of preparation, like I've had shows where I've had to do where I've been sick.
Yep.
You have people say, drink a honey lemon tea or don't have any dairy or drink a Coke, that might help. I've never really adhered to any of the, I guess, traditional advice in trying to address a certain issue. If you're sick, the show has to go on.
Yep.
So you find a way to show up. My voice is actually quite raspy too, because I've been working pretty much non-stop for the past probably 3 months. Been on the mic mostly, at least 4 or 5 times a week. But there is a way that you can dictate your voice, and you get used to it, and it comes over time. Probably the only thing I can remember is that my first show that I did at the PCYC, I lost my voice and it didn't come back for a couple of days. And the thing is that I was just yelling the whole time. There was no moderation, there was no volume or pitch control. It was just, I'm going to be Bruce Buffer from Timu and impress all these people here. That was my mentality.
Yeah.
However, in those 8 years, you learn when you need to be energetic. You learn when you need to speak softly. For example, I was doing an interview on the weekend at Tasman Fighters with Sonny Bill. That's not a time to come in with a big bunch of energy. That's a time to be able to receive his energy and learn from him. So I come in there to set the platform for him to speak. The platform is not set for me to speak. So there's certain ways that you can, when you understand your role, there's certain ways that you can address that, whether it's volume, whether it's tone, voice moderation. That's probably the best advice I can give, is that in a podcast like this is easy. Even if we were both sick and we couldn't speak, we could still understand each other.
Yeah.
Right. When those lights come on, you have to perform. So
this is forgiving though, right? Like if you're on stage and you have to perform, and like it's not like, hang on, let's run that back, let's go again. You can't do that, right? So I think about that by way of performing like with your voice, right? And there's the whole public speaking thing, and then you can sort of probably work your way up from that. And you probably you'd be sitting up there probably close to a singer, right? Where you get one crack at it. Theirs is probably a little bit harder because they've got to hold notes and do those types of things and timing. But you do have one chance, right, to really sort of articulate what you've got to say, make the crowd hear you, and say a name correctly, introduce someone right, all that sort of stuff, right? Absolutely.
And I think, I get goosebumps just thinking about it, but that feeling of whether it's a direct-to-camera piece or the cage-side commentary is throwing to me, that feeling when those lights come on, the only thing I can compare that to is the whistle going in a game of footy at the beginning. You've got all these nerves, you've got all this anxiety, all this build-up. But if you've done the preparation, as soon as they say action, it's time to go. And I think that's why I've fallen in love with announcing, commentary, public speaking, presenting, whatever we want to rephrase or relabel it as, because it gives me that same feeling that rugby gave me. Rugby was my passion. Football was everything I wanted to be and wanted to do. Didn't pan out that way. However, this gives me that same sensation, I guess, without the injuries. So when you talk about a singer or an actor, or even actors get a couple of takes if they make mistakes, it is quite nerve-wracking, but when it's time to go, you've got to be ready, and that all comes down to your preparation prior to the show or the event. It's too late to start preparing an hour, 2 hours beforehand. You've got to be ready to go long before that.
So how do you prepare for an event?
Depending on what it is, I'll use MMA as an example, probably because it's been the one I've focused on for the majority of the past 8 years. But a lot of it has come through experience. With that experience, there is study that you need to do. Now, I thought in the beginning that I needed to know this fighter's full name, I needed to know his nickname, where he was born, who his parents were, what his favourite chocolate was, who his first girlfriend was, who he's dating now, and what his plans are for the future. That's great, and it's good to mention some of those things, especially if the fight gets boring. But my preparation now is focused more on structure. When I can understand how a production is run, I'm able to use what I have to the best of my ability. For example, I'm pretty well familiar with my role when it comes to commentating MMA. I work for Eternal. I've worked for them for 8 years. I understand the structure now, and I'll give you a little bit of it. We'll have an opening trailer. The promoter will speak to the camera with the host, and then they'll throw to me. I'll give an open. For example, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Southport Sharks Sports Club for this Eternal 91 live and exclusive on UFC Fight Pass. And we open the show. We review the main card. That
was amazing.
If I know the fighters, I can give a bit of detail, but it's not just for me to keep speaking and going into every detail. There are times where I have to set up a platform and set up an opportunity for my co-commentators to speak because they've got knowledge that I don't have. They might know fighters that I don't. Once we've opened the show, we throw to the MC. He'll introduce the first fights, and as they're walking out, that's when I will give an in-depth explanation of each fighter, and then we call the fight as we see it. Rinse and repeat. Right. If you look at the UFC, with the exception of the big, oh my goodness, and the oh from Joe Rogan, which is what we all remember, that's great. And I love that. I love that energy. But I focus a lot on what Jon Anik says. And it's not just sponsor readouts. It's not just announcing upcoming events. When you listen to him properly, and whether you're at the casino or the pub or like I don't go there anymore, I like watching it at home. Yeah. But when I'm watching, I'm listening to him. He can say the same thing 10 times in one show and say it 10 different ways.
Right.
That's a skill that I'm still working on. And when I talk about preparation, when you're studying your notes, when you're finding that structure, when you understand the structure and what you need to say, you don't just understand the structure of how a production is run, you understand how you can structure your sentences in a way where you don't sound repetitive, but at the same time you are. So that's my focus at the moment. That's
I'm going to be listening sharply to the next one at the next UFC.
So that's just a bit of an insight.
Yeah, it's awesome.
There's obviously a lot more, but
yeah. And so say you landed a gig with like the UFC. Like, what is the preparation like? Because obviously there is the experience and activity knowledge of that. It's your experience, right? What you've done over this period of time, but leading like into something so big like that, where you know, how do you control your nerves? Like and then is there like a process of something that you do prior to going into something like that, like an enormous event like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the dream. Yeah, the UFC.
Do you have a dream to do that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome.
Absolutely.
Good on you.
That's secretly and now publicly. Good
on you, man.
That's been the dream. I think that I'll share this with you. It's funny that when I started announcing, and you probably share the same view as well. I never pictured a world where fast forward 8 years, everyone's got a microphone and headphones. Everyone's got something to say. Content creation and social media has changed everything. When I first embarked on this journey, from announcing at your local PCYC to here where I am now, where I can actually do this full time, the UFC was always the goal. I just never felt, and probably to some extent, still don't feel fully prepared. But compared to day one to now, I can certainly see I'm getting closer. And as I go back and look at my previous performances, I can see that that dream could possibly, should the opportunities present itself and God willing, come true. Now, in terms of preparation and controlling nerves, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I don't get nervous.
Really?
I really don't. I've got chronic and crippling anxiety when I played rugby. certain relationships, you know, as a father, you know, when I was married, when I got married to my wife, I was incredibly nervous that I couldn't even do this or even be a father.
Yeah.
But you find a way. In terms of this, I can't really remember a time where I've actually felt nervous, and it's strange.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
I'm not sure.
Surely, if you got the call to go to the UFC, and you'd be nervous, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think the anxiety would come.
Yeah.
100%. Whether it's the UFC or even this previous event for Tasman Fighters, the fight between Joe Bataille and Claudio Square, that was a world cruiserweight boxing match.
Right.
So you like Eddie Hearn was here on the Gold Coast for his last fight.
Yes.
Eddie Hearn's top 3 boxing promoter in the world, if not the best. So that's kind of the equivalent of, for example, if I was to get the call to the UFC and I managed to make it through that with very little nervousness. So to answer your question, for me to give advice on handling nervousness in terms of public speaking, I'm not sure. But what I can say is that you can control your preparation and you can control your effort. And I think if you can focus on those two, come showtime, you'll be ready. And I don't necessarily think there's a time where I haven't, because I always make sure to focus on those two things. And I think that's probably how you can control your nerves best.
Awesome, man. So boxing and MMA. Tell us about that. So, because you box now, you teach boxing, is it?
Yes. Yeah, I had a couple of, they call them corporate fights, exhibition fights. So they don't go on the amateur record, but I had a couple of corporate fights back in between 2010, 2011.
Right.
And then a few more when I came back from my church mission in West Africa between, I think it was 2015, 2016. Right. So I come from a boxing background, but I've always enjoyed wrestling. I wrestled at high school to help the skills that I was trying to enhance playing rugby. Yeah. Our defence coach, he actually got a full wrestling mat, Olympic wrestling mat. I think he spent like 20 grand on it.
Wow.
The director of sport was furious. He's like, "What does wrestling have to do with rugby?" He goes, "Absolutely nothing, but I love it." So I fell in love with wrestling at high school. So I always had a bit of knowledge about boxing and wrestling. In terms of MMA,
is that common even now, like with rugby training and wrestling? Do they okay? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. You'll find that most professional teams, especially during the off season, they'll wrestle twice a week.
Right.
And the thing with wrestling, it is, obviously I haven't wrestled at a high level, but from what I've been able to participate in, wrestling truly is the hardest sport in the realm of combat sports. And you'll have boxers and Muay Thai fighters and mixed martial artists trying to disagree with me. But you go and speak to any wrestler. We'll talk to Kyle, and you ask him out of all of the aspects, which one's the hardest? And they will say wrestling, the toll it takes on your body, the movements that you have to master in order to be successful. Once you've got it down packed, if you look at some of the best fighters, not all of them, but some of the best fighters and most champions in the UFC, whether it's today or in the past, they've all come from a solid wrestling background. Unless you're a significantly advanced striker, submission specialist, grappler, yes, there are those exceptions. And if you can do it all like an Islam Makhachev, well, then that's great as well. But if you look at all the great champs, they do have a solid wrestling background.
Excuse
me.
No, good man. Yeah. Do you want to tea or something, or are you good?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. America's probably as far as wrestling goes, when you sort of think about, and I don't know, it's probably just the commercial way I think about it, but they're sort of reared to wrestle, aren't they?
Yeah.
Are they like the only nation really that are like that headstrong about wrestling from a young age? I feel like all the movies you grow up watching, they'll wrestle, right? Like as a sport.
Yeah.
But in Australia,
yeah,
I've never ever heard of that. Right?
No, we don't have it here,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate because wrestling, other than the physical aspect, the mental gain and benefit that you can get from wrestling itself is unmatched to any other sport. Rugby's great, soccer's fantastic, swimming's fun, but in terms of being one-on-one with an opponent wrestling, you could compare it to boxing and kickboxing and things like that, but I don't think I've ever felt the fatigue that I've felt when I've wrestled as opposed to any other sport. In answer to your question, yes, America has a great emphasis on wrestling. They've got a high school program, they've got college programs that lead all the way to the Olympics, and a lot of those, high school and college athletes, they transition to MMA because, maybe the path to the Olympics is a bit narrow, it might be a bit harder, as opposed to, well, if I can develop other skills, well, then it's a possibility that I can make money and possibly make it to the UFC. But they're not the only ones. Like you're finding a lot of guys from Russia, from Dagestan, Kazakhstan, those mountain areas of Russia. They have been dominating wrestling for decades, and I think that we're seeing more and more of them come through the ranks in the UFC.
Why don't you think wrestling's popular then? If you feel like it's like one of the hardest, why do you think? Well, maybe it is. Maybe I just live under a rock. But like, is probably answering my own question here. Is the UFC just come in and MMA just like scooped them all up and just given them the limelight? Like, is there a standalone wrestling championship?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got the Olympics. And then you've got college wrestling in America is massive.
Yeah, okay.
And obviously, I'm not too familiar in what other parts of the world do.
Yeah.
But they just had a massive, I think it was the NCAA college wrestling championships.
Yeah.
And the guy who won it last year, his name was Gable Stevenson, and they were saying that he's probably the greatest heavyweight wrestler of all time. Well, he just got beat, and President Trump was there. You had all the celebrities at the NCAA Division I championship. So it's massive in the States. Obviously, you've got the Olympics. It's just a matter of transitioning those skills and, I guess in today's age of professional sports, getting paid.
Yeah.
So with the UFC, they've blown up over the past, 10 to 15 years. But wrestling as a sport as a whole, I'd probably say it's not as popular, and you said it, because it's the hardest. I think you could apply that to Muay Thai as well. I mean, unless you're in Thailand or maybe Bali, Muay Thai fighters here in Australia, you could be the best in the world and you could walk down the street and not many people know who you are.
Yeah, right.
But if you're Alex Volkanovski or Jack Della Maddalena and you've got that UFC belt, because of the profile that the UFC has today, well, everyone will recognise it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the UFC champ. Whereas if you're a 7-time WBO Muay Thai world champion, then hang on, he looks familiar, but who is he again? He could be the most dangerous guy on the planet. So it's more so just, I think the UFC's just taken off, and social media's obviously helped that because there's a lot of, obviously for men, there's a great appeal to be able to bash everyone.
Yeah, even for women. My wife loves it. There was a point in time too where when there was Fuel TV.
Yeah, I used to love Fuel TV.
Like, yeah, man. And like we used to this was before kids though, and like we could just be chilling. And I don't even think back then probably Netflix and like those subscriptions.
Not even close.
No, were even around. So, and we'd always just end up watching the UFC, and it was so good. Used to follow it like so much, and I don't know. And like now, I think probably kids. Like I think about it. Like I still love it. And have an appreciation for it, but I haven't sort of chimed back in on it in a while, and I sort of just from afar now, and social media right is how I chime into it. But you obviously just watch it implicitly like a hawk. Are you all over it every fight?
Yeah, I think I kind of have to be. Yeah, I usually sometimes host watch parties for the pay-per-view cards at the casino. So that's again just another feather in the cap, but.
Tell me about that. So how does that work?
So the sports bar.
Yeah.
So the sports bar, they show all the pay-per-view UFCs, right?
Yeah.
And quite often they'll have celebrities or athletes. This time last year, we had Robert Whittaker come through, do a guest appearance. So I'll host, interview him. There's an opportunity for the fans to meet and greet, take photos and things like that. And then you just watch the card. So yeah. It's not bad.
It's a rough day at work, eh?
It's a tough day at the office.
Far out. That's cool.
So I do spend a lot of my time watching MMA.
Yeah.
And it's just more so for my own personal study. Just keep me up to date.
Well, that's I was going to say, I probably haven't officially done like wrestling, but I went and had like a role once with Denim and another mate of mine who's a big lad, and it was like a jiu-jitsu class, but nearly all of it was like on the ground. And I still to this day would say that that's probably the hardest workout I've ever had.
Yeah.
And like, I think after it, every muscle, including everything in my neck, my jaw, right up into the back of my head, just rolling and just getting contort and held in these positions. And I didn't know like strategy either. So a lot of the stuff I was trying to do was just use my strength.
Yeah.
But I can definitely appreciate the wrestling comment you made and how hard it is, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What about you with jiu-jitsu? Do you get into that?
I do. I've been a 3-stripe white belt for about 6 years now, and my professor, his name's Fabio Suarez, has been pleading me and commanding me, even demanding me to come back to class and earn my blue belt. So I'll have to go back. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Like that's the
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the best.
Yeah, man.
It's the best. It's the best. I think that, I've got a daughter. She's 6 years old.
Yes.
If she ever wanted to learn self-defense, I'd probably put her into jiu-jitsu first. My first introduction to boxing was when I was about 11.
Yes.
When my cousins made me put the gloves on and have a fight in the backyard.
Yeah.
Very stark introduction to physical contact.
Yeah.
Obviously playing rugby at the time, but in terms of being one-on-one.
Yeah.
We used to box out back and get into it, and then I'd transition those skills to the football field and spend at least 10 minutes or a full game in the sin bin. But yeah, I think jiu-jitsu is a good segue into if you wanted to compete in mixed martial arts, or if you just wanted to learn practical self-defense.
Yeah.
Especially today. I mean, the world we live in today is. You'd think it's more dangerous than what it was back in back when my dad tells me all his stories when he was 20.
Well, that's how we sort of indirectly met. Is because my son, and it's your nephew.
My nephew, yes. Yeah. My daughter was at his party. Yeah, they're cousins. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they go to jiu-jitsu together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you told me that. Yeah, excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's crazy. I feel like it's just in front of me at the moment. Like I went to a mate's wedding a couple of weeks ago, and there was like a black belt jiu-jitsu guy there, and we just got talking. And so I'm like, oh, Teal, my son, he does it. And he's like, do you do it? And I'm just like, oh, no. He goes, you should start with him. Yeah. And he said, like, the bond you'll have coming through it together. And so I'm like, yeah, but I haven't done anything about it yet. I've got to do it. That's
plenty of time.
Yeah, got to do it though.
Yeah.
But I've always been like, oh, fuck, do I really just want to roll around on the ground with some other sweaty dudes and like in the summer in one of those sheds? And I'm just like, do I really want to do that? And I'm like... Go and give it a go. I might love it. Yeah.
You will. Like, I'm of the same mindset as well. Like, would I rather do that or, go play a game of touch footy or box or, I still spar to this day, MMA sparring, kickboxing. I enjoy that. That's kind of like my outlet. Release. But, yeah, the jiu-jitsu is a hard one for me. So, like yourself, definitely need to get back.
Boxing, man. Talk about boxing. Where do you see boxing now?
It's in a really good place.
Yeah?
It's in a really good place, especially with the introduction of what you would call the Saudi Arabia money. They have something called Riyadh season, and there's a lot of money coming from the Middle East. And beforehand, you had different promotions. So, I mean, you've still got, I think there's 4 or 5 separate promotions. There's WBO, WBA, WBC, IBF, and then there's a certain segment called... I think it's either the Ring or the Ring magazine. Yeah. So you could have one champion in each of those divisions, but none of them fight each other. And that's what it was for a while. If you remember heavyweight boxing, it was kind of like, it was either one guy held all the belts.
Yes.
Or it was like 4 different guys held one belt each, and you're trying to get them to fight. You had organizations like HBO, Showtime, and many other promotions that would be privy to certain fighters. So if you were the WBO or the WBC champion, you would fight for HBO. Or if you were the IBF or the Ring magazine champion, you would fight for Showtime. I don't think that's how it went, but that's what it would be. So you had the promotions and you had the production. Yeah. I think what's happening now is that with the introduction of, I guess, Middle Eastern money, and there's a guy, His Excellency Turki al-Sheikh, pumping plenty of money into having the best fighters come to Saudi, come to Turkey, Vegas even, and have these fights. You got Dana White. He just partnered with Turki al-Sheikh, and they're doing the Canelo-Terence Crawford fight, which was a matchup none of us thought we'd see, but we're actually going to get it because they're able to, one, fund it and pay the fighters, and two, just kind of cut through all that red tape where there was a bit of tension or contention between promotions, organisations, production, so on and so forth.
Makes sense. Yeah. Do you have a favourite fighter?
She's after the weekend. I couldn't go past Jai or Pattaya. I spent some time with Jai, and he's from here. He grew up in the Central Coast of New South Wales, but he actually lives on the Gold Coast. His gym's
right.
He just opened up a new boxing gym in Bundall called Opatai Boxing.
Okay.
So, when I was covering the event for RXM, I actually spent a lot of time with Jai. Got to have a podcast with him.
Yeah.
Interviewed him on a couple of occasions, and just the way that guy fights is pretty intense, and not just the way he fights, but who he is as a person. I think I asked him a question. It was something like, how do you celebrate after a fight? Something along those lines. And he just goes, "Oh mate, I got to do the business first. We'll celebrate after." And he just stared at me, and I was like, "Yeah, you definitely got those Mike Tyson eyes, mate. Good luck on Sunday."
What weight class is he?
He's cruiserweight, so I think that's 93.
Yeah,
93 is the limit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's talks that obviously last weekend may have been his last fight in Australia.
Yeah. Before
he goes to Vegas, or he's already been to the Middle East and fought on the big stage. So, hoping to unify the belts in that weight class. But yeah, he'd be my favourite fighter at the moment, and probably for a while now. So.
Yeah. With you, so you've done both, like, because you've come from you started like a boxing background, and then you've sort of crossed over into mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
What do you like one or the other better, or?
Yeah, they're quite different. The atmosphere and the crowds. I've noticed that the crowds at each event, they're quite different. How would I describe this? And I'll probably cop some stick for this, but so clip this one. But but if you go to, like, especially here in Australia, Queensland, New South Wales specifically, if you go to a rugby union game,
yes,
that's a private school game, right?
Yes.
So if you were to go to if you go to high school rugby union, for example, I went to TSS, you would find a certain crowd.
Right.
There's a certain way in which we behave. There's a certain, I guess, class.
Yeah.
And, we don't rule anyone out, but indirectly we do. Okay, so you go to a high school rugby union game, whether it's a private school or even, that even transitions to club rugby and even super rugby. There's some wild fans there, but there's a certain way in which things are done. You go to a rugby league game, and I was playing third grade for the Parkwood Sharks probably like 5 years ago. Mate, they're some of the most hostile crowds you'll ever find. And here's the thing, I love it. Absolutely love it. You've got your working class man, it's very family orientated.
Yeah.
But I absolutely loved rugby league. So, they've said, this is not a secret, they've said this for years, but, rugby league blue collar, rugby union white collar, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure if I can distinguish the difference between MMA and boxing. What I can say is that boxing feels very similar to going to a rugby union match. And MMA feels quite similar to going to a rugby league match in terms of what I see and feel the energy from the crowd. The thing is I absolutely love both. And that's probably the easiest way to describe the difference.
And that's a great analogy and perspective, man. That's and it's interesting as you say that. And so why do you think that with boxing? Do you feel like, because it's like almost not an older craft, but like it's something that commercially has probably been around for a bit longer, so there's sort of like your diehard fans. Why do you think it is?
With boxing, there's a certain culture that's been embedded with boxing for a very long time, and you really can. You can probably only experience it if you go to an event, or if you've been to several events. You can see, okay, this is how things are run. Whereas an MMA, it was viewed as human cockfighting. Let's just be honest, it's cage fighting.
Yeah.
Right? In the beginning, you didn't really look at these guys as professional athletes, and they certainly weren't getting paid like the professional athletes were today. I mean, probably talk to Kyle about that, how much he was getting paid in the beginning of his career. Yeah. But the thing is that I think because boxing's been around for so long, there's just some old habits that don't die easily. You know what I mean? Some good. and some not so good. For example, one of the not so good ones would be, well, we want to make a big fight, but we can't come to terms on who the A side is or who the B side is, on who gets this much money and who gets that much money.
Yep.
And is there a rematch clause, and where we're going to have the fight, and what size the gloves are, so on and so forth. Whereas if you look at MMA, you take the UFC for example. Yep. They've started from where they were, in 1991, and grown the sport over the last 30 plus years. But it's at a point now where they've partnered with in the past ESPN, Fox, and now they've got their own platform on UFC Fight Pass. That they've been able to build a brand for themselves where it appeases to everyone. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that not everyone watches boxing and more people watch the UFC, but what I'm finding is that is that boxing, there's a culture in which we understand in boxing. There's a certain way in which things are done. With MMA, it's developing and progressing as it goes with different athletes, with different personalities. And I find that the UFC has done a great job of just making fights happen. If you got two great fighters in one weight class, we'll make them fight.
Yeah.
And they have the rankings, and those rankings mean something in certain cases.
I think you touched on it before, you could almost look at it in a way, it started as cage fighting, and over time it's evolved now into a sport.
Correct.
And now this sport has a culture, it has fans, it has intricacies, it has structure.
Whereas we've always seen boxing as a sport.
Yeah, that's right.
I've never not seen boxing as a sport.
And almost probably, you could argue to its detriment, that is the argument, right? It's there's not enough, not that there's not enough action, but if you stack it next to the UFC or mixed martial arts, then there's so much shit that happens in, and too, MMA, guys can just stand or just, do nothing for ages as well. But I feel like that's the notion, right? Is that in boxing, there's not as much action as MMA. But what do you think about that?
Well, no, it's funny you mentioned that because there's an interview that resurfaced from, I think it was like the early to mid 2000s. Joe Rogan, he's defending MMA against a boxing analyst. And the boxing analyst is saying things like, you don't know anything about boxing, you don't like boxing, you don't respect boxing. And Joe Rogan was saying, no, I respect boxing. All I'm saying is that MMA encompasses more aspects of combat. It's not just punches. You can elbow, you can knee, you can kick, you can wrestle, you can grapple, and you can finish a fight in many different ways other than just by a knockout or decision. So I think when, obviously we're having the argument between the two, you brought up a good point that, MMA has gone from this cage fighting extravaganza to now being a mainstream sport, which it is. And I think what that does is that the boxing enthusiasts or experts, we're on the same level now. So now we have to compete.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you'll find, I guess, the difference in opinion is, well, no, boxing is it's an art.
Yeah.
Well, this is mixed martial arts, and therein lies the argument.
And because I've done a little bit of boxing back in my day, and growing up in a country town in New South Wales, it's like you sort of part and parcel. I think it's almost like your rite of passage into sort of manhood, right? As a young man or teenager, I think back in the day, it's sort of, as you said before, you're going to come into a couple of dust-ups or whatever, and so you sort of got to learn something. But doing it there, and like I mentioned before, with having a roll with my mates, you have this appreciation for jiu-jitsu or rolling. Boxing, man, like to land a clean shot, like it's so tough. Like when you watch two professionals literally going at it, there's so much shit happening in there, and it's so hard to like get a proper clean shot, knock someone out, do all that type of thing. So there is an appreciation to the craft once you sort of have a little bit of an understanding to it, right? Like and too, that's probably what's evolved and happened and happening in the UFC. It's becoming like this all well-rounded combat thing now, where there's just this deep appreciation for it. People see it, people hear it more, and I'm about to get into fucking jiu-jitsu.
I'm happy for you. It's the best thing you could do.
Yeah, man.
Definitely.
So, but man, tell us about Africa, man.
Yes.
You mind we talk about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can talk about anything.
Let's talk about that, mate.
We can.
So how old were you when? And just tell me about Africa.
So I was 19.
Yeah.
And to give a bit of backstory, I grew up as a Mormon.
Yes.
And this isn't necessarily common knowledge, but no, I did. I grew up in what we call the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I am a Christian. I am a Mormon, and as a requirement of males when they turn 18 and females as well, but it's optional for the females, you're required to go and serve what's called a full-time mission. So that's 2 years of service for the church and for God in a place that you are essentially called to by God. So, it could have been Sydney or it could have been Ghana, West Africa, which is where I went. Yeah. So, at 19, I left in 2011.
Yes.
What's today? 13th of June. I left on the 13th of June.
Did you?
2011. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
100%.
Wow.
Yep. 13th of June because I needed to be there by a certain date. Or I might have come home, but 13th of June is a significant date. I either left or I come home. So it was between 2011 and 2013.
Yes.
So almost, what's that? How long ago is that?
11?
11, 13. So we're 25. What's my maths?
So 14.
12 to 14 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was 19 when I went to West Africa.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's preparation and standards that you need to meet before you go on a church mission. So I met those, and then, I left in June, spent 2 years in Ghana. And essentially, all we did was the main focus was obviously spiritually, preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, but also there was a temporal side to it as well where we were able to, help dig wells, built a couple of schools. And when I say built schools, I mean, help build one building.
Yeah.
Didn't build the whole school.
Yeah.
But gave a lot of service while we were over there. And it was quite a special experience. I found that between 19 and 21, that was probably when I was able to go through a lot of, I guess, mental and spiritual growth, just being in that environment. Yeah.
Yeah. I got one of my closest mates. He's from Ghana.
Oh, is it?
But yeah, he left there when he was young.
Yeah.
But so when you say, did you state the place to go to? Like you said, called through God, like where you wanted to go.
Yeah.
But was it yourself that, like you said, I'm going to Ghana?
Definitely not. No, Ghana was not my first choice of of where I wanted to go.
Yeah, right.
The way that it works, when I say called by God, there is leadership in the church structure.
Right.
So we have what's called the president of the church.
Yeah.
And then under him, there's a quorum of 12 apostles or disciples of Christ, and they decide where you go. But it's essentially given by inspiration and revelation by God. That's what we believe. I can probably say that it was revelation from God, because if I had my choice, I wouldn't have gone to Africa. Probably would have gone to, I don't know, where's a place that's nice? I don't know, probably would have just stayed here, to be honest. Yeah, that's right. So that's how your area of service is chosen.
Right.
Yeah.
What was your biggest takeaway from that experience? Because man, that's far out. Like, what a culture shock, everything shock, right?
Definitely, and especially at that time, at 19, that they're really your years to develop.
Yeah.
You're probably not in your physical. Well, you might be in your physical prime, but in terms of growing mentally, emotionally, and I guess in this case spiritually, like 19's like you're ripe and ready to do anything. I was playing footy at the time. I was at university, and I decided to go. And I don't necessarily know why. I think what happened at the time was a lot of doors closed. Like, I think I got injured in the last game of the season.
What was your injury?
I broke my thumb, compound fracture my thumb.
Right.
So nice nasty one there.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't really doing too well at uni.
Yeah.
So I was kind of at a point where I was just mucking around too much.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I need to sort this out. So my best course of action was, well, if God can help me, then I'll take this path.
Yeah.
But going there, it was certainly a culture shock. Probably one of the main takeaways I brought from that when I come home was I don't necessarily look at, I guess, temporal things the same way as I did. I've never really been like a materialistic person, but I think when you spend so much time amongst people who really don't have much, some of the areas that we served in and some of the people that we taught, they were living in mud huts. They'd have to go down to the well and fetch their water on a daily basis and shower in a cup and bucket. And that's not my sob story. I grew up in Southport with running water my entire life. But living amongst that and having to do that at certain parts of my mission, it humbles you and it changes your perspective on things coming home. Obviously I've lost a bit of touch out of that. I do enjoy the luxuries of life that the Gold Coast offers here in terms of food and entertainment and experience. But, there'll be times where I'm lying in bed. I'm like, man, I'm pretty lucky. Pretty lucky not to be sleeping on the floor under a mosquito net.
That's a solid experience, hey, to have at that age. Like, you're asking a lot of questions, I think, at that age, like 18, 19, I think right up until like 25. It's like that. You're out. Now I'm sort of legal to, you can drive, you can go to clubs, you can do all that. So you think you're an adult and you have all of your rights basically. But I think too, in that time, you're sort of really discovering who you are.
Yeah.
That's cool, man, that you had that experience at that age.
Yeah, it was pretty special. I think I'd be very different had I not done that.
Yeah.
I look at my life and I think, other than just the spiritual and the religious side, which I take very seriously. Clearly I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
But, it's funny, just in the last 6 weeks, I've actually tried to rededicate myself to being more spiritual in terms of Christ and other aspects of Christianity.
Yeah.
But I look
at Mormon religion.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
cool.
Absolutely.
But I look at what I learned from those 2 years. For example, public speaking. Well, I did that every day. Teaching and essentially asking inspired questions and gathering information just through conversation like we're doing now. That's what I was doing every day, 10 times a day for 2 years. So I look at some of the skills that I learned and take away from that and implement in my life today. My life would be very different had I not experienced what I did in those 2 years. And when you talk about giving service to people that don't have much, that's really the only thing that fulfills me today. And you see so many people out there, they've got a lot of mates who, quite wealthy, got a lot in terms of material possessions, but then we'll sit down and have coffee. I'm like, you're all right, mate? He's like, oh yeah, I'm happy, kind of. Something's missing. And in those moments, I haven't done it all the time, in those moments I'm like, well, mate, you need Jesus. But there was an opportunity for me to realise where I guess true joy comes from.
Yes.
And a lot of it comes from helping other people.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where I'm dedicating my life and trying to progress, is putting myself in a position where I can first and foremost help my family, help others, and help myself.
Right.
So that's what I guess the whole 2 years taught me was, it ain't all about you.
Yeah.
Especially here on the coast. It's all about me.
Yeah.
It's all about me and this city.
And I've had a couple of podcasts with other mates, and me personally, I feel like that's probably one of the biggest problems with, and yeah, it's my opinion, but I feel like that's a strong reason for where men's mental health is these days, is that they haven't had an experience to reflect on and give perspective like that. And my wife's from Vanuatu, all right, and she's an interesting culture. She's not ni Vanuatuan, but she grew up there. And there are people that still live in villages, mud huts or shacks, whatever you want to call it. And I often think, oh gosh, like with my kids, I think it's so important to, when we go back there, to take them. I haven't left them in a village, but there's method in that madness too. Like I feel like if I ever felt they were going on a road where they were just selfish, basically, and couldn't step outside themselves and have empathy for someone else's situation that is not as good as theirs, right? Like I really think it would be hard for anyone to have that experience and I think that age is like, it's probably perfect to put someone in that environment and just go, just live there for a little while, see how you like that, and then when you come back here, how could you not have an appreciation for what you have and gratitude for where you are and where they aren't? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I did. It kind of rewired your thinking patterns of, hey, listen, I'm not the only person on this planet. It's not all about the T-show. There is a greater purpose to what this life has to offer. Yep. And the beauty about it is that, especially in Ghana, I mean, the people are so happy.
Yeah.
People are so happy. I mean, I didn't meet one person when I was over there that didn't believe in God. Right. Whether they were Christian, Muslim, whatever it was, they had a belief in a higher power. And that's the thing. It's, I'm not here trying to preach Mormonism or Christianity or whatever. But like you alluded to with men, especially in our late teens, early 20s, we are looking for purpose. I thought my purpose was football. Clearly, if it was, I'd be playing 100 tests for Australia. It wasn't. I had to go down this road. Okay, cool. I found my purpose here in terms of being a spiritual man of God. What's my purpose over here? Okay, I've found a skill that I can utilize in public speaking. But I think the way that I think now, it all leads back to being the best version of yourself and helping others. And I think that's, I can agree with what you were sharing there, is that there's more to it than just me. We can incorporate the concept of we, which is admirable. Yeah.
Have you got kids? Did I hear you say that?
Yeah, just one daughter. She's 6.
She's 6.
Yeah.
And will she do a mission as well?
If she wants to, her mum served the mission in Japan as well.
Yeah.
So, both my wife and I dedicated our time to service. She went to Japan. I went to West Africa. Japan would have been fantastic, by the way. It would have been great. But for my daughter, for the women, it essentially is a choice.
Yeah.
In the church, the primary objective for the women is to get married and have children.
Right.
It's not necessarily forced upon them. Like anything, we have our agency. But in terms of the men, yes, it's highly recommended.
Right.
To serve a mission. Whereas for the women, it's an option. It's a choice. Yeah.
Why is it a mission? Like, why is it important in that culture, in that religion?
I think when you look at the overall purpose of the church, which is to, put simply, share the word of the Lord and bring others unto Christ through faith, repentance, baptism, and receiving the Holy Ghost, enduring to the end, I feel like I'm on mission again. That's essentially what we believe to be God's purpose. And we believe that we all have a major role in doing that. Now, the perception, I guess, of the Mormon Church is that it's led by these old blokes who pretty much just tell us what to do. Well, that's not necessarily it. I think, to be quite direct, is that, no disrespect to any other religion out there, I've got one of my best mates is Muslim. To be honest with you, if I wasn't a Mormon, I'd probably be a Muslim. Yeah. But we do claim the privilege of worshipping God, but we respect each and everyone's individual beliefs and let them worship how, where, and what they may. But for us, I think, like myself, when you have a firm belief in God and in Christ, you want to share that with others. In the same way that if I'm in a position temporally where if I see someone that may need help, physically, temporally, materially, if I'm in a position to help, I would want to do that. It's the same thing spiritually. Obviously I have a belief in Christ. I'd want to share that with yourself and as many others to experience the same joy that I've experienced in my life, being a believer. So I think that's probably why it's emphasised so heavily for the men, because at that age, you're physically able and capable.
Right.
And at the same time, you're able to learn lessons that you wouldn't. I mean, if I was to go there now at 33, I'd be like, no, I'm not getting up at 6 every morning. So I can do 10 hours of work in 4 hours. Yeah. And you can't. You have to put in the time. You have to put in the effort. Yeah. So I think that's probably why it's emphasised more on the men, whereas the women, when you look at, I guess, it might be a bit skewed in today's society, but when you look at our women, motherhood, being a wife, that's what we would believe to be the primary roles of daughters of God, essentially. So I don't know if society agrees with that, but again, the beauty about it is that we all have our agency and freedom to choose. Yeah.
Is it Mormonism? Can I refer to it like that? How do I?
100%.
Is that how you refer to it?
It's been referred to as Mormonism for the past over 100 years.
I wasn't sure what it was actually called, but is it a growing religion?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I don't necessarily have the statistics or the figures for you, but in terms of the religion itself, I don't know. Have you been to Brisbane? Kangaroo Point? There's a big, we call it the temple, with a gold statue on the top.
Ooh, I can't recall it, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, next time you go to Kangaroo Point, you won't miss it.
Every time I go past it, yeah.
But pretty much probably the reflection of how the church is growing would be a reflection of how many temples are being built throughout the world.
Okay.
And what we believe is that those temples are built in preparation for the second coming of Jesus Christ.
Right.
Now, I'm probably sounding like a crazy person to your average listener, but when you break it down, when you know, like anything, you might see a mosque and say, that's a landmark for a Muslim. You might see a Catholic church, that's a landmark for a Catholic.
Yes.
Right. Well, the temples essentially of the Mormon Church are our landmarks.
Yep.
And the more that you see of those is a reflection of the growth in the church. The more missionaries that you see in white shirts and ties, riding a bike, knocking on your doors, annoying you while you're watching the footy, wanting to talk to you about Jesus, that's a reflection of how the church is progressing. In terms of growth, I'd probably say today the toughest thing that we're facing is probably retention, where people have been baptised and converted, but they've fallen away. There's been a massive focus on bringing people back.
Right.
So in terms of growth, yes, we are still growing, probably not at an exponential rate that it was maybe a few years ago, but bringing others back to the fold is what the focus is today. Yeah.
And that's part of your service?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that was part of the service during the 2 years, and even today is just an average member of the church. You know, you'd be surprised, man. Like, especially in my role, there's a lot of Polynesians that you meet that are fighting.
Yes.
Man, half of them are Mormon. And you wouldn't even know it. And I'm like, oh, you wouldn't know I'm Mormon too, but here we are.
Yeah.
So.
Do you ever speak at your churches? Like,
sometimes, like I'm asked to, but I think, you know, when you talk for a living, you want to make sure that you give others the chance.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, you are given opportunities to speak, and I have spoken many a time.
Yeah.
In church services, sacrament, and other classes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome, man.
So yeah.
Yeah.
That's just one major aspect of my life that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's so Denham, Kyle's brother, he's hard out Christian fella. And
good.
Man, you get him going, man. He gets going. And like,
beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we'll do one with him one time.
Please.
You love him. He's a mad dude.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, man. What time have you got to get out of here?
I've got all the time in the world for you, bro.
Oh, thank you, brother.
All the time in the world.
Thanks. What's next for you then, man? Like, what are you up to? What's next big thing for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've thought about it.
UFC? Apart from the UFC?
Apart from the UFC, look, I think if I just focus on what's in front of me, you know, God willing, the UFC will be there.
Yeah.
I'm not just gonna, you don't just get there overnight. You know, I think about it often, obviously, but you know, there's obviously the UFC, but there's other opportunities as well. That's the number one dream.
Yeah.
But this past weekend, presenting and covering for RXM and Tasman Sports. Yeah. That was an opportunity I never thought I'd get.
Yeah.
And yet, here we are.
And you smashed it.
Hopefully. Hopefully.
Yeah.
I'm at a point now where I think that 6-7 years ago when I first started, my 26-year-old self would have been dreaming to be in this position today. So I don't necessarily take this for granted. I think that when I was carrying bags at the Hilton and Concierge and dealing cards on the table at the casino, I would dream about these times. And I'm enjoying the present moment, but there's always something to push for. So to answer your question, what's next? Yeah, let's go to the UFC. How does that sound?
Awesome, man. Yeah. I think there's so much power in. Is this the first time you've said that publicly?
Oh yeah, out loud.
Yeah, good on you, man. Yeah. I think there's so much power in that. I'm glad, I'm privileged. I'm stoked you said it here, man. Because I honestly think, man, it'll move towards you. I think if you talk about it and just simple things like write it down, talk about it, and I think there's just so much power in that, and it'll come for you, bro. And I think it's so good that you reflect on, you think back you think back when you were younger to look forward and go, where I am now is amazing. Yeah. You smell the flowers. It's so important because when you're on the grind, right, you just get, I talk about it here with the guys all the time. Like we're always so like, let's go, we need this, we need to get this, we need to do this, we need to do this. And it's like, yeah, we do, but hang on a minute. Yeah. It's like, also, like, look at where we are and where we've come and what we've done. And right, so everyone give yourselves a pat on the back. Cool. All right, now let's get to work. Yeah. Like, so it's good you do that, bro.
And I think that when you stop and pause and just go, okay, cool, this is okay.
Yeah.
You know, because I've actually been on the opposite end. I think this time last year I was very dissatisfied as to how, I guess, my career in announcing was panning out. And I remember being down in Sydney, I was hosting a poker tournament, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, you know, I should be in the UFC by now. I should be making millions. Whereas to now, I'm just like, bro, enjoy this.
Yep.
Enjoy this.
Yep.
I've always said this, and I said this about, you know, a lot of my friends that did go on and play professional footy. It was one of my good friends. He was the captain of a team called Connacht in Ireland. His name's Jared Butler, and I think we were at home one night, and I think I was playing out of position in some football match that just didn't matter, and I was really upset. I think I might have even been in tears. But he asked me, he's like, bro, you gotta get over this, eh? And I was like, man, I shouldn't be playing in this position. I should be playing somewhere else. I can give so much more. You know, I'm never gonna make it if I don't play in this certain position. And he's like, bro, if you're good enough, you'll make it. If you're not, you won't. And he was so right.
Yeah.
Just that blunt advice. And I've never forgotten that. And I've never really forgotten that. And I think, like, all these years later, I still remember it. And it doesn't stress me out. Like, yes, the UFC is the goal, or commentating for a massive boxing promotion. Yeah, they're your big goals. But, man, if you're good enough, you'll get there. If you're not, well, you probably see me back at the casino hosting a watch party. Like, it's a very simple principle that I learned, you know, when I was probably 18.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm grateful that he was just so direct. I mean, he probably doesn't think anything of it. He was probably like, man, stop sulking. We've got to play tomorrow. Get over yourself, and we need you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're going to make it, you will. If you're not, you're not. Like, that's just the reality of life, and that's how I kind of approach it now, as opposed to last year. I was like, man, I should be here. I'm just like, man, if it's going to happen, it'll happen.
Yeah. And you've got to fall in love with the activity.
Definitely.
It's like, it's we talk about this too. Like, it's so many people get fixated on the idea of what they want that thing to be.
Yeah.
And really, you have no idea what it's going to be like when you're there. You might get there and fucking hate it.
Yeah.
So when you think about it like that, it makes you realize, and you go, okay, but if I immerse myself and I just love the activity of what I'm doing, it doesn't matter where I am. I'll be there, and I'll love it there, because if I love it here, I'll love it there. And what a state of mind to be in.
Yeah. I'm pretty happy where I'm at the moment. Like, obviously, we've all experienced dark times mentally. And whether it's due to finances or relationships or failures, whatever it might be, I think you said it earlier, smell the flowers while they're there. Because at any moment, they could be gone.
Yep.
So I think that's what I'm trying to focus on at the moment is, don't try and fixate yourself on where you want to be, because you might get there and, this ain't all it's cracked up to be. There have been many situations where I've gone and done certain jobs, or, probably talking over 10, 15 years ago, been in certain relationships where it's like, oh man, this was meant to be really good, and no, it's not, for example. So, I think like for me personally right now, I'm at a point where it's just like, I can enjoy this while it's here. Should the opportunities come, I'll be ready. But at the same time, don't miss out on this. Is what I've realised, because there are times where I wish I could just go back to the PCYC and just have a nice fun night. Whereas today, there are some times where I'm going to work now. I have to work now.
Yeah.
I enjoy it, but it is work.
It's work.
So time's pretty fleeting like that. And I know it's corny, but enjoy the moment.
It's not, man. How do you practice gratitude? Because that's what you're talking about.
Pretty much. Yeah, I mean, I've only just started doing the old gratitude journal, 3 things a day.
Cool.
But I pray a lot, morning and night. And I guess the structure of my prayers to God, first and foremost, we give thanks for what we have before we ask.
Right.
So gratitude is a daily act. It's not, I'm thankful for my car, my bed, and my house, and I never come back and say thank you to God again. It's moments like this where at 12:30 on a Friday afternoon, I would be getting ready to go to work at the Hilton, to carry bags. Whereas now realizing that I can come and meet with you and share these experiences, I am grateful for that. So gratitude comes for me throughout the day. And obviously you open it with a prayer and close with a prayer. That's how I practice gratitude.
And while we're on that topic, do you, like when you go into that, you give thanks, is it the same things you usually go over, or do you always, are you always looking for new things to be grateful for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for the most part, I'm daily grateful for obviously my health, my family, my inner beliefs in God, and especially my employment. Yeah. But there are certain things that I think maybe not on a daily basis, but what I've experienced that week, I will give specific thanks for. Like, for me personally, covering that event on the weekend, the World Championship boxing match on the weekend, I haven't stopped giving thanks since Sunday, and it's been 5 days. Like, that to me was a special moment, not just to be on camera and hang out with all the superstars, but it was an opportunity for me to be like, okay, look, I've worked hard for this, now can I do it? And I think just judging off, and I'm my own harshest critic, and I'll rarely ever give myself compliments, but I look at the work that was produced over the weekend and I can go, okay, I can build from that. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. So any other opportunities or, people like yourself I meet that allow me to either connect or learn, I think that incorporates into my daily practice of gratitude at the beginning and the end of each day.
Man, you just said before, like when you look back, like at that event that you did. So do you watch every event back that you do and critique yourself?
Definitely not. No, definitely not. No. I think I used to in the beginning. Yeah. I used to in the beginning, and even at times today, I will go back and watch it. I mean, here's the thing with sports commentary, we're not changing the world. All right, it's a great job and it looks cool, and you get to wear a suit, and you get to talk, and you get to present, and you get paid. Yeah. But we're not curing cancer. I'm not in there fighting. I'm not a fireman. I'm not stopping crime. I'm a sports announcer. Yeah, that's all it is.
You just don't take it too seriously.
I just don't take it too seriously, and that's one of the things that I learned early on. Is just like, man, just remember, like, you're a commentator. You're not the Prime Minister.
Yeah, humble, man. It's such a good way to. It's such a good mentality to have.
You have to be, and I've met other announcers and other commentators that they love the sound of their own voice. Yeah, I do too, to a certain extent. Yeah, but you have to remain grounded. Yeah, and just believe that you're here for a purpose. You're here to add and bring value. Yeah, you're not here to put the spotlight on yourself. And yeah, I guess an answer to that. You just have to take it for what it is, and I'm grateful for it. So yeah,
it's the same me with this, and I still in the beginning. Because when I think I heard the first podcast I did and I listened to it back, I was like, do I sound like that?
Yes.
Like, oh, man. And then, but that also started me on an interesting journey of critiquing the way I speak and sound and all of my filler words, not being comfortable with pauses, all these little things that even today I still work on. But I think you said it before, like not taking myself too seriously now. Just like, just let it go. Like,
who cares?
Who cares? Like, and I think the act of even just doing this, and surrendering to it and letting it go, and even that, just like, who cares? Yeah, who gives a shit? Like, if these people really want to get to know me, they'll get to know me. And my brother Jonas said it last week. He said it so well. He goes, man, I've probably fucking said in the last 20 minutes like 100 things wrong. And he said, but hopefully people give me the grace and get to know me a little bit more, know that I'm a good guy.
Exactly.
And I was like, man, that's so interesting. It's such a big lesson to be learnt there in life too. But okay. So you don't listen to them back. It's
not really.
Yeah.
I'll listen to it back if there's a fight that I enjoy, or I believe that there was a mistake that I made. Okay. And I'll be like, okay, go and note this. And I've got notes and notes on my phone and laptop and stuff of things that I need to improve. Yeah. But yeah, if it's like for tonight, I'm commentating a kickboxing match or show at the Croatian soccer club in Carrara. That'll be live streamed. I ain't watching that. Once is enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think in terms of like this last weekend, I have watched some of the clips back, especially some of the interviews, and just to see how. Yeah, it's kind of like watching your footy games or your fights back, kind of thing. Just to see where you can improve for next
Your performance.
time. And that's all it is. I always say, you listen to me too much, you're going to go deaf. You're going to get sick of me real quick. And even though my daughter's like, Dad, are you watching yourself again? I'm like, yes, I'm studying. But it really is that. I'll never really just sit there and be like, oh man, how good was that? No.
Yeah.
I think it's more so along the lines of, all right, did I ask the right questions here? Did I say the right thing? Did I provide the right setting to accommodate for who I was interviewing or what the purpose was? So that's the only time I'll watch it back. Otherwise, I've got other things to do.
Yeah, but that's important too. Sharpen your sword, like as you go. Like as you say, like you've got an aspiration to be like, well, not be like, but who's the guy in the UFC that you love?
John Anik, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
So impossible to be like him, but I can be a very distant number 2 or 3.
Oh, man. Well, no. But how do you critique yourself, right? So you've obviously got him as a standard, and so there is a comparison there, which I feel like people talk badly about comparisons, but from a performance point of view,
you have to.
Like that's your bar, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, man.
No, you have to, and I think that whenever I watch or listen to him, it's like, okay, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I think over the weekend, that was probably the only time in 8 years where I've actually gone, I might be getting closer. Ooh. Just a little bit. Ooh. Just a little bit. The gap is here.
Yeah.
But there might be an extra inch where I can feel confident that I'm improving. And again, I'm not comparing myself to John Anik or Ray Warren. Those guys, they're in a class of their own. Yeah. There's no comparison. It would be an insult to compare me to them. At the same time, like any athlete or any performer wants to model themselves off their heroes, that's just what I want to do in announcing. It's like, I want to be like that guy. What does he do? How does he prepare? How much time does he spend? Things like that.
Do you know much of that about him and what he does? Do you know his recipe?
I don't necessarily think he's going to share the secret sauce with anyone, but I've looked, if you follow him on Instagram and you watch his stories and things like that, he's quite, he does. He gives you quite a lot of detail as to, how you go about preparing. I've got my own way, which has worked so far. And like I said, once you understand the way in which a production is run, well, then you can bring your own sugar and spice to that. So, other than just, writing down your openers, writing down your notes, how you deliver that has to be up to you. Because I can give you a whole bunch of notes and go, here, let's go commentate the show tonight. And it won't mean anything to you. Yeah. But when you combine your experience and the skills you've developed over time, like I said, when you got that mic in your hand, you'll know how to deliver. And I certainly think it's a skill that everyone can do. Yeah, it is. This isn't something that's just given to certain people. People might say that to me. I'm like, well, I don't like calling it a gift. It might be, but I don't like calling it that because I firmly believe that if you put in the time and effort, you can do it. But you have to put in the time and effort. That's the hard part. Yeah.
There's no shortcuts.
No,
there's no shortcuts. Cool, man.
So that's probably as simple as I can put it.
Yeah, awesome, bro. Yeah, awesome, man. Bro, well, we might wrap it up, eh? But
I reckon that's enough.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time, man. Thanks for coming in, bro.
Thank you, Blake. Appreciate you. I enjoyed that. So
good, man.
Hopefully we can do episode 2.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
let's do it. I might get Denim in on it, man.
We can do that.
Yeah,
we could do that. He might not be too fond of me after.
No.
Seeing the moment.
No. He's
Dev's cool. I've met him a couple of times. He's awesome.
Oh, you have met him?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I met him and Kyle at. He comes to the show sometimes.
Yeah. Cool. Kyle is coming down. He said he's going to do one.
Good.
Yeah. Good. So, bro, thank you so much.
Cheers, brother. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Oh, good. Thank you, man.
Happy with that?
Bro, that's been awesome, man.
That was all right.